Low fluid levels or oligohydramnios is an indication, a medical indication for induction at term. Why is this? So a lot of people think that when we're doing a cervical check, the only thing that we are learning is whether or not you are dilating. So think of the being on the monitor or the fetal heart rate tracing as a vital sign. It's like taking a temperature or a blood pressure. Anytime you're facing a medical decision, pull out your brain framework. The labor shakes, something that almost all of us experience, but hardly anybody talks about. Welcome to this week's episode of the Black Birth Stories podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Woodus. I'm a wife, a mama, and a board-certified OBGYN on a mission to help eliminate women's health disparities and improve Black maternal health outcomes. I help you take back control of your birth story without the fear of becoming a victim of the Black maternal health crisis. Each week, we amplify the voices of Black women and our unique birthing experiences, creating an environment for learning, for healing, and for empowerment. Be sure and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube so that you don't miss an episode.
So things happened pretty fast today. I had an appointment this morning. Today is my due date. And I go for my appointment. She says my fluid is very, very low. So I need you to go straight to the hospital and get induced.
Low fluid levels or oligohydramnios is an indication, a medical indication for induction at term. Why is this? Low fluid levels can be an indication of a couple of things. It could mean that your bag of water is broken and you just don't realize it, in which case there is increased risk for infection if we're not making active forward progress at term towards delivery, and we don't want to increase our risk for complications. It could also mean that naturally, as we get closer to our due date, our fluid levels naturally start to decline. And sometimes this can mean placental insufficiency, which can then increase our risk for fetal distress. And we don't want to bring on any risk that are unnecessary. There are a couple of different ways to check fluid levels. One of them is just as simple as doing a cervical check. So a lot of people think that when we're doing a cervical check, the only thing that we are learning is whether or not you are dilating. We're actually getting a whole lot of additional information that is very useful for assessing the health and well-being of the uterine environment, as well as learning whether or not we think baby can fit through the pelvis. Yes, are you starting to dilate? What's down there? Is it a head? Is it a booty? Is it something else? That's important to know. And then oftentimes you'll feel us lift up on baby's head, and that's how we assess how much fluid is in the uterus. So I know that if I lift up on baby's head and it floats away from me, plenty of fluid in the uterus, no indication for a concern. But I know that if I lift up on baby's head, number one, baby could just be really, really well engaged and stuck and wedged down in the pelvis. And a lot of times when they start to move into that position, you just physically can't lift them up. But number two, it could also be an indication that the fluid levels are low, in which case, at term, low fluid levels or oligohydramnios, oligo means low or few, hydramnios refers to the amniotic fluid, can be an indication that it is time for delivery. The other way that we assess your fluid levels is by doing an ultrasound. So on ultrasound, we divide up the uterus into 4 quadrants, kind of think of a big cross, quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what we do is we measure in centimeters the fluid levels around the baby where there are no fetal parts, where there's no umbilical cord, just fluid levels on all 4 quadrants, and add up those 4 quadrants. And that's how we get our amniotic fluid index. Alternatively, on ultrasound, we can just look at one of those quadrants and measure how much fluid in centimeters is present in one of those quadrants. So lots of different ways to assess it, but low fluid or oligohydramnios at term is a medical indication for delivery.
These are the worst mistakes Black women can make when choosing an OBGYN, assuming they'll automatically prioritize your safety, ignoring the signs when they dismiss your concerns, and not having a plan to advocate for yourself. Sis, I've been there, and that's why I'm so glad I found the Mocha Maternity Survival Guide, Choosing the Right OBGYN. This guide gave me everything I needed to avoid those mistakes, from conversation starters to tools for assessing their care. It's the ultimate roadmap to make sure you're seen, heard, and protected. Don't take chances with your health. Get your copy today and make the choice that could change everything.
So that was a beautiful look at the fetal heart rate tracing. So this mama is on the monitor, and we just were able to see what's called the fetal heart rate tracing, or FHTs. So what we were looking at is that top number where we saw all of the up and down sawtooth activity and the beautiful accelerations above baseline. So think of the being on the monitor or the fetal heart rate tracing as a vital sign. It's like taking a temperature or a blood pressure. It's our way to assess how baby is doing during the labor process. So by looking at that heart rate tracing, we can get an indication about whether or not baby is responding well, or if there is any indication of potential fetal distress. It gives us an opportunity to identify the concern and intervene on the concern in an effort to improve our outcomes sooner rather than later. That was a beautifully reactive strip. That baby is looking really, really good. We saw lots of up and down sawtooth movement in that baseline heart rate. Remember, we've talked about a normal baseline heart rate is anywhere from 110s to 160s. We saw beautiful accelerations above the baseline, which is also an indication of fetal health and well-being. So we start to get concerned when we start to lose that variation, that sawtooth up and down variation in the heart rate tracing. Sometimes that can be an indication of maybe medications that could be on board. So for example, mamas who are dealing with things like severe preeclampsia, the treatment oftentimes is to put those mamas on magnesium. Magnesium acts as a sedative, so you'll see a softening or a flattening of that heart rate tracing. Other medicines like the pain medicines that we use, the Statols, the Demerols, the morphines, that type of thing, are also sedative medicines. So with those medicines on board, you'll also lose that variation in the heart rate tracing. And other times, at loss of variation, especially over long periods of time, that does not recover, can be an indication of fetal compromise. So that's one thing. Loss of accelerations above the baseline can also be something that we need to pay attention to. Could also be an indication of fetal compromise. We also start to look at whether or not there are dips below the baseline or decelerations. It depends on when those decelerations are happening as to whether or not they are concerning. So if you see just a quick blip that goes right below the baseline and then quickly returns, a lot of times that has to do with compression of the cord, which can happen when fluid levels are low. Remember, this mom is being induced for oligo or low fluid levels. How quickly that deceleration recovers, how it dips below the baseline and comes right back up and then looks good in between, are all things that we pay attention to when it comes to assessing fetal health and well-being. If we see those decelerations with the contraction, that's often an indication of head compression, which happens as that baby is in position in the birth canal, moving lower in the pelvis, getting ready for delivery. So not always an indication of concern unless those decelerations are super low and that baby is struggling to recover or come back up to its baseline heart rate. And then other times there can be decelerations that are concerning. For example, decelerations that happen after the contraction that has a slower, prolonged journey back to the baby's baseline can be concerning for fetal compromise. Oftentimes you'll see another line underneath baby's heart rate tracing that is mama's heart rate, so that we're comparing the two to make sure that mama's doing well. You know, it also helps us distinguish which heart rate are we listening to. Is this mama or is this baby? And then at the bottom, we see her contraction pattern. So you see beautiful mountains or hills at the bottom. You can get an indication of when those contractions are happening, how often they are happening as well, because we know what the contraction pattern needs to be in order to keep us making good forward progress during the labor journey. So that was a beautiful, beautiful fetal heart rate tracing.
So just to refresh your memory, the epidural is basically a tiny IV, kind of like the one you have there, but much, much smaller. We place outside the spinal cord. It's going to deliver numbing medication, easy pain of delivery. Once the epidural is in and working, it'll be numb from about here down. You have to stay in bed, no food or drink after the epidural is in place. We'll do the procedure here in the room. I'll be behind you. We want to keep everything behind you sterile and clean, so it'll be important for you not to reach behind while we do this. But basically what I'll do is clean off your back with some soap, numb the skin on your back, insert a hollow needle through the skin. Once I get the needle just outside the spinal cord, I'll thread that IV or catheter through the needle. We take the needle out, leave the catheter in. We do a couple tests to make sure the catheter's not in a bad spot. If everything tests well, we'll be able to continue using the epidural.
Okay.
So as you know, it's a safe procedure, but it does have potential risks like any other procedure that we do.
Great communication from this provider about the ins and outs of the labor epidural. This was shared decision-making and informed consent, done very, very well. So remember, anytime you're facing a medical decision, pull out your brain framework. What are the benefits of this procedure? What are the risks associated with this procedure? What are the indications or the reason why it's being recommended to me? And what is my intuition Tell me about it. What are the alternatives? What else can I do? What happens if I do nothing? And how much time do I have to make a decision? And then at the end of the day, make sure that all of your questions and concerns are addressed before you give or withhold your consent.
Think about it. How many hands helped raise you? How many voices spoke life over you? How many arms held you close? Black family is deep, and at Melanin Maternity, we celebrate every single part of it. We're not just a shop for mamas. We're a love letter to the entire village. From keepsake birth announcements that honor your newest blessing, to new dad gifts, to presents for the grandma who still prays over you. We have gifts that tell your family's story. Looking for holiday gear that actually represents us? We got that too. Because whether you're the one having the baby or the one making sure the baby always has love, you deserve to be celebrated. Shop Melanin Maternity on Etsy today by visiting melaninmaternity.etsy.com. Because our families, our stories, and our legacies deserve the spotlight.
So, my hand's shaking, but you gotta hold it. I got the epidural shakes, but I'm 9 centimeters, and we probably about to push in like 20 minutes, probably sooner than that. But overall, I'm feeling good, and baby about to be here very soon. So we're just waiting. And I'm shaking so bad and it's freezing.
The labor shakes, something that almost all of us experience, but hardly anybody talks about. Very, very common experience. Why do we even get them? It has to do with a whole lot of things. It has to do with adrenaline, hormones surging, temperature changes, your response to medication. Very, very common. They can happen whether you have a vaginal delivery or a C-section. Sometimes it's because you're cold. Sometimes it could be because you're in pain. All of those things could weigh in. I find that you just want to ride with it. Don't try to fight it. The more you try to fight it, I feel like the worse that it gets. Typically doesn't last that long. Maybe up to an hour. And if it's super bothersome to you, there are medicines that can be given, typically IV. Demerol, for example, is one of them that can help you with the shaking, but very, very common experience. Think of chills, right? When you have the flu or cold or whatever the case may be, think of chills. That's what it feels like, and it's a very common experience.
Any minute now.
Yeah, see the hair? Yeah. She got hair. She's right there. She's ready.
Come on now, baby.
You see it?
Yes, I
No. And it's so long you can it's almost perfect.
do. Got that ear.
She got itches.
Baby.
So on that side though, dear.
This side?
Yep. I'll move this out the way.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have 2 of you on that side and then
Want me on this side?
yeah, that's fine. We'll be on this side.
Oh.
Baby. You want to take her fully out? Yep, I got it. We pushing.
All right.
Okay, girl.
Be focused.
Right. Pretty.
Needle.
Wow, 4 pushes. Congratulations to this beautiful family. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Do me a favor and share this episode with a mama who you know would benefit from the learning and the healing and the empowerment that happens each and every week on the Black Birth Stories podcast. We'll see you next week.
Want to go deeper? The conversation doesn't have to stop here. Join Melanin Maternity, our digital Black birth community, where you'll get expert guidance, real support, and a sisterhood that sees you. From live Q&As with birth experts to empowering discussions with other Black mamas, we've got you covered. Click the link in the description and step into the community you deserve.